As someone who chronically struggles with fatigue due to my multiple sclerosis diagnosis, and as someone who has a PhD in clinical psychology and has treated people with sleep problems, I want to share 10 easy ways to boost your energy. And I'm going to acknowledge some of these are a little weird or kooky. They just come from my own personal experiences and what happens to work for me. So feel free to take them or leave them, but some of these just aren't the typical ones you hear. The first tip for having more energy is one that you have heard before, I'll admit it, but it's a good base one to just start out with. I promise I'll get to more different ones later. And that's to get good sleep. I know if I get good sleep, it's way more likely that I have a better MS day. Now, it doesn't guarantee it, but it just greatly increases the likelihood that I have more energy to be active, to be engaging with people, to be doing things for more hours of the day. I think it's important to keep in mind that sometimes also more sleep doesn't mean better. If you're oversleeping or taking a bunch of naps during the day, you might not be restricting your sleep enough in order to get good sleep at night. So just make sure that you're being thoughtful about when and how you're sleeping. For me, I know that getting 8 or 9 hours of sleep is just what I need to feel good. For some people it's less, for some people it's more, but budgeting that time into my day and just forcing myself to go to bed when it's time and to get up when it's time makes a huge impact on my energy levels. Also, I just want to add to this, if you're really struggling with sleep or insomnia, definitely seek treatment. I know there are talk therapies that have really good effectiveness where you're just talking about your behaviors, figuring out what works and what doesn't for your sleep, and they have really good outcomes. So if you're shy about therapy, maybe even in general, this might be a good way to get in. If you do CBTI, which is an evidence-based therapy for insomnia, it doesn't tend to be as emotionally focused. It's just about figuring out how do we get you to sleep, and they seem to have success with it. A second strategy is to know when you need a break or a rest, even if it's an awkward time. And this is one that I've really had to learn with my MS, but I think it can apply to people even without chronic illnesses. As someone who tends to be a people pleaser, I want to say yes to things, and in the moment when we're in the middle of an activity, I feel like I have to keep going with it if I've agreed to do it. But I've learned that I'm allowed to revoke my consent to doing something at any point if it just feels like it's too much. I'm allowed to change my mind. I'm allowed to say, I don't think I can do this today, or at least I need a break. I need a moment to kind of rest and recover. Part of this is learning to listen to your gut. If you feel something's off, say something, do something about it. Sometimes it's easier said than done because it feels awkward and you don't know how to express it, but ultimately just doing what feels right for your body is the right thing to do. One example of this is I read someone who wrote on a Reddit forum about having MS, and I know this may feel like it applies less to people without MS, but I think the concept applies. Basically, the person said, when I'm at an airport, I have to do a ton of walking. And if I'm walking for a bunch of time, I end up totally losing all my energy. And then my trip, or at least the rest of that day, maybe the next day too, is completely ruined. Because that's just how my MS works. When I get tired from a big walk, it just ruins my energy levels for a long time. And so what I've realized I need to do is sometimes if I'm gonna have to walk really far in the airport, I ask for a wheelchair. And I feel bad about it because I technically could walk the distance, like I technically am capable of it, but sometimes it's just too much and I know it will ruin my entire day and next day. And so I need to advocate for myself and do that. If it really is coming to that where it's impacting my ability to enjoy my life, that's a reason to use that extra help. And I think this concept can translate to just taking a break in the moment when you're at work and you can't focus. Or if you're on a hike and it's just overwhelming, asking for a quick break and to sit down for a minute. Remembering that it's okay, that is an option to you is always helpful. A third strategy is to make sure you're using your time to do things you enjoy. There were times in the past where I worked in contexts that would totally drain my energy. And throughout the afternoon and even into the evening once I got home, I just felt spent. And I realized a big part of it was that I just wasn't enjoying the day-to-day work. When you do something you really dislike or are bored by, it's just not going to give you much energy. Humans thrive on interest, on excitement, on engagement. And if you're just feeling bogged down in your work or what you're doing, maybe it's time to switch it up. And it doesn't necessarily have to mean you have to have a career change, but even within the monotony of your day, if you can switch your task or shift what you're doing in the moment to re-engage yourself, it might help boost your energy. A fourth strategy is to remember that if you feel sleepiness in a moment, it doesn't mean that you will feel sleepy for the rest of the day. So often, if I'm in an afternoon slump and it's like 2 or 3 p.m. and I'm just like feeling heavy and tired and like I can't focus, sometimes I just remind myself, sometimes this happens in the afternoon for me, and maybe in a couple hours I'll feel a little better. Maybe not. Maybe the day is shot. But somehow reminding myself that I might feel better soon just because of the natural circadian rhythms or how my energy happens to go. Again, maybe it means I need to switch my task or take a break for a little bit in order to feel more energy. A fifth tip is to not let FOMO determine all your decisions. Sometimes if it's late at night and I'm hanging out with friends and other people seem to be staying longer, I feel like if I leave, I'll be missing out. Or maybe even if I was planning to kind of rest up and recuperate and reorganize my life on a Saturday and a bunch of people are doing something fun, I shouldn't just go because I feel like I'll be missing out. I should go because I want to go and I'll enjoy it and maybe it will actually stimulate me in some way and get me excited. But if it's not for the reasons that I intrinsically want to do it and I know that it's just going to drain me even more for going back into the work week, saying no sometimes is okay. A sixth tip is to recognize that some stereotypes about energy are not borne out by the research. Like some perceptions society has about what gives you energy or what helps you sleep well are just not true. So for example, the idea of a sugar high where you get energy after eating sugar and then a sugar crash is just not supported by research. They've researched it and sugar doesn't necessarily increase energy in the short term in that way. There's actually a really great maintenance phase episode about all the untrue myths about sugar. Maintenance phase, love that podcast. Check it out. But that's just one example of all these ideas around what we should do for our energy, what we shouldn't, and how sometimes they're just wrong. And it's important to listen to your own body, pay attention what works or what doesn't for you for energy, and also look at the research to inform what will actually help you improve your energy levels. A seventh strategy is to use coffee in a smart way. Because for some people, coffee has a huge impact on them. For others, it doesn't. For some, it'll keep them up all night. For others, it really doesn't do that. But I will say coffee for me is a great tool to boost my energy in the morning. It really helps me. It helps me even focus, I think. And because I have MS and I struggle so much with energy, it really can be a lifesaver. Also, just remember that the half-life of caffeine is between 3 and 5 hours, which means at that point, the coffee will be about halfway left in your system as far as how many levels are in your system. And so use that maybe to inform how or when you use coffee. An eighth tip is if you have trouble sleeping, remind yourself that your body is built to sleep, and second, that you might actually be sleeping more than you think you are. Basically, what they found in sleep studies is that people tend to underreport how much sleep they get, sometimes by a lot. And sometimes when we think we're in and out of sleep or we're like half asleep, but we really think we were awake all night, we actually did get sleep in that time. And sometimes when I've had a bad night of sleep, reminding myself of that just helps psychologically boost my energy. I just think I may not be as bad off as I think. And a variety of hormones, including prolactin, melatonin, cortisol, and thyroid stimulating hormone, all are changing in their levels throughout the day to make it possible for you to sleep. Some hormones actually build up in your body throughout the day while you're awake so that they help you get sleepy at night. A ninth tip is to take a hot or a cold shower or to wash your face if you don't have time for a full shower. Sometimes changing your temperature really quickly can just give you that jolt that wakes you up a bit. So sometimes just splashing some cold water on my face or going in front of a fan or taking a cold shower really wakes me up. A 10th and kind of fun tip to boost your energy, especially when you're in the middle of the day and you're just kind of feeling that lull, is to do a mini cheer or song or even a little dance to boost your mood. For me, sometimes I'll just make weird movements with my face to just kind of wake me up. Or sometimes I'll sing a little song to my dog Ginger and pick her up and do a little dance with her just to get my blood moving. Anyway, I thought these strategies would be helpful just because as humans, sometimes we get tired, and If we can reduce how long or how intense that fatigue is, it might impact our quality of life. Thank you so much for spending this little bit of time with me, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye.